Okay. Perfect, perfect. Brent, did you have anything that you want to share before we get started?
Nope, I am all good here.
Okay, perfect. Well, welcome. If you can believe it, this is already our fifth session of the Financial Power series, and it has been absolutely wonderful. And so I'm super excited. We are talking about debt management, but what I've loved about the series is that it has progressively built. Each session has built upon the other because before we can even get to debt management, we really have to consider where's your money going? What type of financial goals do you have? Really have to start from that foundation space, and then we tap into creating a spending plan that works for you and your goals. And then just last month we talked about credit management. And so often you need the credit before you even get to an issue of debt management. And so they're just built upon another. So if you are catching the replay, or if you are here live and you haven't watched the replays from previous, definitely check them out. And with that being said, I always like to make sure that we are in the right place because sometimes we just need a bit of a reminder. And so you know you're in the right place if you are a go-getter and you're not a quitter. If you're truly ready to reduce the time and some of the mistakes, they're just learning lessons to achieve your financial goals, but you're not really sure where to start. This is a great space to start. And then oftentimes, if you're ready to release some of the shame and confusion and overwhelm around your finances, this is a great space because I speak to not just what to do, but really looking internally as to what are some shifts and some beliefs that we may be holding on to that is actually preventing us from truly meeting our goals. And then lastly, if you're just ready and willing to do the work to manage your finances better, you're definitely in the right spot. So of course it's gonna be about 45 to 50 minutes. It's gonna be informative and interactive. And then also we're gonna make sure I leave time for questions. So if you have that, definitely let me know. And then as always, my promise is powerful and practical information. And today is gonna help you to really manage your debt and then your financial success. If you can show up and you're consistent and you implement some of these action steps and you like I said you're consistent, I promise you you're gonna go far. And then just a little bit about myself. I'm Alex. I'm a financial empowerment coach. I'm a CPA, a certified financial planner, and I hold my life insurance license. I founded AGA Tax and Consulting Services because I wanted to escape my 9 to 5 life, but I also wanted to be more impactful. I spent over a decade in public accounting, and as a single mom working 60 and sometimes 70 hours a week, it was just a lot for me. And so it was really scary to bet on myself and go out on my own. But I'm thankful I did because now I actually support other entrepreneurs and just building wealth, but being strategic about it, and changing their relationship with money. Leaving a six-figure job where you know where your check is coming from every 2 weeks to go into entrepreneurship is extremely scary. And maybe your story is not you want to go into entrepreneurship, but maybe you are burnt out and you just want to break. Or maybe you are tired of some of the patterns that you've held that have really prevented you from living the life you desire. You really have to take and explore your relationship with money because so often we feel like we need the strategy, but if you have the strategy and you still are not actually executing the strategy, a lot of times that has to do with our mindset and some blocks that we have internally, and really being able to work through that is super important. And then just some other little facts about me. I'm a girl mom, 19 and 5-year old. I love traveling. I was sharing earlier. I just got back from Costa Rica. And for if you're watching the replay or you're here live and you're someone who's like, man, I want to travel more. There is something to being able to see other cultures and experience other people, places, and things that light you up and actually then motivates you to even go after your dreams even further. And it doesn't have to be expensive. So just if that's something that's on your heart, I encourage you. We can figure out a way to make that happen. And as it relates to debt, I was in over $50,000 of debt, and that included student loans and credit card. And I was able to eliminate that and eventually build my net worth. So I say that to say I've been there. I've done that. I got the T-shirt, a keychain, and a souvenir hat. And with that being said, are you? I got back from vacation and I was in total zen, so I may be on next level. I'm just in a really great space, and so I'm going to try and contain myself. I can't stop smiling. I'm just so relaxed. But and sometimes you need that, especially when we dive into talking about debt. And as I mentioned earlier, I really also talk to some internal work. And before we get into the strategy of, okay, what's the best repayment strategy? We're not starting there. I actually really want to start with what are some of your thoughts and beliefs around debt? Because what I know to be true is that, and I didn't mention this, but you have a workbook. So make sure you utilize the workbook so there's some spaces in there where you can actually answer this, or if you have a pen and paper, that's fine too. But what are some of the thoughts and beliefs that you are currently holding around debt? A lot of times this comes up as when we're children. Like, what are some of the things that your parents may have said about debt? Or what did you see with credit cards? In my household, I always saw people using credit cards. And I was just like, oh, yes, that's just everybody uses credit cards. That's what you do. What I didn't realize was my family was using the credit cards, but they were not paying them off. And it was just the minimum payment. So when I got to college and got my first credit card, I thought, okay, as long as you have available credit, you can use it, and then just pay the minimum balance. That's what you do. And so I got these beliefs in me that debt is okay and you can use it for whatever. That's not really the best thing to do. And I'm going to show you in later on in the presentation, but I want you to think about what are some beliefs that you feel about debt. Other people, it's the opposite. They feel like you're irresponsible if you use debt. If you have debt, it's something to be ashamed about. You did something wrong. Like, who are you? Like, you're irresponsible. That can also be negative because using debt, you can actually leverage it. Business owners leverage debt. A lot of these real estate moguls, they're leveraging debt. They're not tying up all of their capital. They're using someone else's capital to now acquire assets that they can then grow and accelerate and build their wealth quicker. But if your belief system about debt is you're a bad person if you have it, you may say, you know what, there's a chance for me to invest in my business to grow it, but I'd have to go into debt. And I don't want to be a bad person, or I don't want to be irresponsible, and then you avoid doing it. So it holds you back. So it's really, so you can just take a couple minutes to identify, are there any beliefs that you have that you're holding on to that, and the feelings are not good or bad. The beliefs are not good or bad. They just are. And it's important to bring it to your awareness. So then you can start to question, is this belief or feeling helping me or harming me? But you have to become aware of it first. And so we'll take a couple minutes for that. Just what are your feelings about debt in general? And then what are your thoughts or feelings about when you think about accumulating more debt? Is that something that scares you? Is that something that causes you stress, or that you're just like, for the right amount of debt, or for the right debt, or debt that's going to help me grow, is not an issue? But just think about what thoughts and feelings come up, and if anything comes up in the chat, just let me know, and I can definitely address that as well. Yeah, I have fear, anxiety, and concerns about accumulating debt, and then that causes stress. Debt is bad. Yeah, a lot of us have that thought. And then I'm going to show you kind of like how I characterize debt, because there is that I do believe that there is, for lack of better words, good and bad debt. Right. There are sometimes that if you are accumulating debt and it's providing you no nourishment, whether that be to your mind, body, spirit, or your financial journey, if you're leveraging debt to fill basically a hole, then I'm going to say that that's bad debt. Because what happens is if that hole, it never gets filled if you don't deal with the root of why you're accumulating the debt. If accumulating debt is actually going to prevent you from getting to your goal quicker, and you have a desire, yeah, that's not going to be the best use of your debt. But if you're accumulating debt to where sometimes it's just impossible to avoid it, if you don't have the cash and it's a matter of having a new car, or using a credit card to fix your car, so that way you can actually then go out and generate income, that it actually eases your stress, so now you can actually function. that's not bad debt, but we can be smart about how much we accumulate, right? We get to decide how much, we get to decide what type of debt. If you can avoid going to getting debt that had super high interest rates, like from loan sharks or some of the payday loans, we can be wise about how we accumulate it. And then sometimes if it's something that you can actually wait on, if it's not pressing, maybe you just save for it. But there are options, but really identifying um is that bad? And it is, and the answer is it depends. It absolutely depends. But the blanket statement of all debt is bad, that is definitely something when we can take a deeper dive and say, okay, why do we believe that? And I like this process of why. Like I ask myself why like 3 to 4 times to really start getting into the root of that. So it's like, why is that bad? My parents said it was bad. Okay, why did your parents say that was bad? Oh, they bought a house and then it went into foreclosure and we were homeless and had to live with and we had to live on the streets. Okay. But then does that mean that the debt was bad? What else could have happened? That didn't make debt bad. That made some financial issues come up. And then take a deeper dive and see what was that. Maybe it's the they bought too much house they really couldn't afford. So it wasn't that the debt was bad. It was, hey, this decision wasn't the best decision based on their financial circumstances. But by taking a deeper dive, you can actually start to debunk some of those feelings. But yeah, those are key. And so I want to actually then share some facts about debt. So I know for me, especially when I had student loan debt, I was really ashamed because I didn't know anyone that had student loans in my immediate surroundings. But I didn't talk to anybody either. So one thing I think a lot of shame is around debt. And sometimes it's because we are not actually speaking to people and getting the facts of what's going on. And this is not to say that you have to tell your business to everyone. I would never suggest that because you want to make sure that whenever you're sharing in a safe space. Also, where your confidentiality, if that's what you desire, is to be respected and things like that. So I'm not saying just tell your business to everyone. But what I am saying is holding those feelings inside does not serve any of us. And the fact is the total household debt, according to the New York Bank, is 17 trillion with a T. Trillion with a T. Okay. That's that's the amount of debt that households in the US hold. And then the Americans have 986 billion with a B debt on credit cards, almost 12 million trillion dollars debt on mortgages, a million and a half trillion, again, this is with a T, on vehicle loans, and 1.6 trillion in student loans. I share this because most people have debt, and that's just the reality of the situation. So if you are in debt, I want to say you are not alone. You are not alone. And so sometimes just knowing that you are not out here by yourself is super helpful in being able to just take a breath and release some of any, if there is any shame, anxiety, or stress around it. It's like you are not alone. Okay. Um, and then I even broke it down. I wanted to show you the demographics and see the average debt. So I am in my late 30s. And so the average amount of debt for someone my age is $26,000. And I think sometimes when you are able to look and see, okay, well, what's sometimes the average? Not to say that, you know, you want to be in the average or not. But again, it gives that relatability to where if you have $25,000 of debt on credit cards, you're not like, oh my gosh, what am I doing with my life? You're on par with the average, okay? And for younger people, the average, believe it or not, like 18 to 29, you're averaging about $13,000 of debt. 40 to 49, you're averaging about $27,000 of debt, and this is outside of a mortgage. This is not even include a mortgage. So I just want to make you aware of that, so you know that. And then I added some other statistics here, and this is mainly to really support you in identifying what education can do to help you increase your income. Because reality is that if you are in debt, a lot of times having more income will support you in paying down that debt. And so if you're watching the replay and you are in you're deciding whether or not you want to go back to school because your income isn't where it needs to be, consider perhaps some certifications, because even getting a two-year degree, a lot of times some of those certifications, you're going to earn on average about $14,000 more than someone with just a high school education. So it's super important to take into consideration perhaps continuing your education, but be wise. You do not have to get out crazy amounts of student loans. You do not need to go to for-profit schools where the tuition rates are sky high, and it takes a lot to actually repay that back. Leverage technical colleges where you can actually get certifications and then go out and earn a great living. Preach this to your children as well. I'm encouraging a lot of my family members, their children. Tech is great. And if you know any like mechanics, because see, I'm about to go on a tangent here, but we need more technical professions here. Oh, let's see here. I stress about that even when I pay it off. It's almost as if I can't feel better once it's paid off. There's a fear associated with using the cards, knowing that, yeah, and then, yeah, See, and see, doing some of the internal work, and then also identifying what are we using the money for? Because is it guilt for what you use the money for? So that's something to consider. And then sometimes it really is checking in with and asking yourself, what is this about? What is this really about? And then what is the guilt about? Is the guilt that you're able to now pay it off and it was something that you weren't able to do? Is it something that you wish you could help others more? But getting really to the root of what's causing that to come up. And then sometimes asking yourself, how true is it that I should feel guilty or shame about this? And then sometimes, depending on what you purchased, identifying, was there a reason for it? Was there an underlying reason for the purchase that when you look back, you realize I didn't really want what I purchased? And so it's more of a feeling against the item and not necessarily you being able to actually accumulate the debt and pay it off. Because I'm a credit card girl. I want my points. And it's just like, if you see what I mean? So it's like if you can afford it and you do desire what you're purchasing and it has given you some level of joy, when you actually start going through and asking yourself, could I afford this? And just because you put it on a credit card doesn't mean that you can't afford it. Perhaps you're putting it on a credit card because you want to spread out your payments. Perhaps you wanted to and it's okay to leverage other people's money. I'm going to do that on Black Friday when I go and get new appliances, because Home Depot allows me to pay the exact same amount, but over time. And now I can leverage that. Now I've budgeted that I know I can afford the appliances in general. So maybe it's really looking at taking a minute to actually look at your numbers and say, can I afford this? Because sometimes like once you look at your assets, your income, your expenses, and you can decide, am I putting this on the credit card because I desire to leverage and get points? Or I don't want to come up off of all this cash at once, and I can leverage a 0% APR and take benefit of earning some cash. Am I purchasing it for that, or can I really not afford it? And actually look at your finances and identify which one is true. And if you look at your numbers and say, you know what, I can hold on to whatever this, I don't need to purchase this right now because financially I can't afford it and I don't need it. Then you can start making the decisions from an educated space and not just from feelings. Was that helpful? A lot of times I use the car for things that are large, like appliances that don't want to. Yeah, and I'm the same way, especially if it's 0%. Now if I have to pay interest, I will just take it out of my bank account. I'm not gonna lie to you. But if it's a 0% APR, I'm leveraging their money every time. And then what I do is based on the introductory period or the 0% APR period, I map out my payments to come out automatically, just so if it's $1,000, I will say, and it needs to be paid in 10 months, I'll say, okay, then I make sure I pay $100 a month. So by the time before the introductory period ends, I've made my minimum payments. And so then that's how I will budget out repaying for large purchases. But I don't like coming out of my bank account with everything because you just never know what other emergencies may come up. So if I can leverage other money, I do that, but I literally go through that process and make sure that it's something that I could afford to begin with from the beginning is what I would like to do. Um, and so I now after seeing these statistics, there's also a page in your journal book to say do your feelings about debt change, or even after listening to me, has anything changed around your feelings about the debt that you're in or accumulating more debt? See if anything has changed, and if so, how? Because that can also be an indication of, okay, maybe there's some room for growth here. um seeing these statistics that you are not alone, understanding that, hey, there are ways to consider when to use credit versus not, like checking in with yourself to make sure that, hey, am I financially fit to take on this additional debt? But just take a couple minutes to reflect and see if your feelings have changed, and then we're going to get into good debt versus bad debt, because I think that is an important distinction. And so in your workbook as well, there is a, what would you call that? There's basically a chart where you can go through, and when you think about the debt that you own, and give you an opportunity to write out whether it's good debt or bad debt. And so I'm going to go over the definition of good debt. So basically, good debt is, typically you're used to acquire assets or investment that basically have the opportunity to appreciate and grow. So typically, or generate income. And so that's what we consider good debt. And so that could be a home. And then let me say this. This is a home that you can afford. Sometimes we want a home and it's beautiful and it's great, but when we actually look at the numbers, we're like, that would be a stretch. Making sure that you're not buying, and when you buy this home, make sure it's the home that you desire and not a home that you're purchasing because you're concerned with what someone else would love. And so just making sure that, because an asset, a home could be bad debt if you purchased it and you knew you couldn't afford it when you bought it, and then you were also buying it not because it's something that you wanted, but you were trying to impress someone else. Good debt is also education. Typically, education is when you go into get student loan debt, you're using it to, um, finance an education. And as we saw in the previous slide, having a higher education does allow for higher grossing income. So that's appreciating education, but education could be bad debt if you've acquired a degree to where it's not really something that you can use. I shared the story when I was, working. I had, a client who shared her son had gone to a school that was super expensive. It was private, and he had accumulated about $100,000 in debt for college, and it was a religion degree. And this individual had no desire to actually go into religion or go any further, become a doctor or anything like that. They're now working at like a theme park. Having $100,000 student loan debt and then not leveraging that to actually have a career where you can pay that off, that could actually be seen as bad debt. Um, and so I share that because we don't want to get caught up in what you're spending the money on. We really want to see what's the long-term effect of having invested and accumulating debt to purchase that item. And so if it's not causing you to actually get some sort of gain and appreciation, it could be viewed as bad debt. Investing in your business to grow, that can be good debt as long as it's something that, again, that can help you and support you in growing or leveraging your business. But I also add, and this is my definition, is priceless moments and such as good health and peace. That can be a, good debt. And an example I can give you is, I had a client who was struggling with whether or not they would go and visit their father, who was very ill, and she was not sure if she was going to be able to see him again. But she was like, I don't have the cash for this right now. All I have is my credit card. And so I asked her, I said, if something were to happen to your dad, and you had that credit card that you could have used to go see him and you didn't, how would you feel? And she said she would be crushed. I said, you get to decide because this is your money, this is your finances. I said, but if you would hold on to the memory of not being there to see your dad and he take his last breath and you didn't get to see him, if that memory is gonna hold in your heart and you would, have regret and negative thoughts and negative feelings for years and years, use the debt. And so really considering when you are um looking at your debt, look at what was actually, don't just look at the financial gain that came from it. Also look at what level of peace or memories did you receive that had it not been for you acquiring that debt would not have been able to happen. And the reason I do that with clients is sometimes when you've accumulated debt and you do have this shame around it of, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, and you have all this regret around it, it snowballs. It really snowballs, and it either sometimes causes you to make even more less responsible or great financial decisions because you're trying to manage the pain and all this, or you just hide out and you're in fear. And so, really being able to determine the meaning behind the debt as well helps you determine whether it was good or bad. Some other signs of good debt is it's typically low interest, and sometimes it can be tax deductible. So, like buying a home, the interest may be tax deductible. If you are itemizing business, that's something like that, that's deductible. And so, those are some other signs. And then I gave you some examples of mortgage, student loans, and that's supposed to be investing in yourself or your business. Because personal development, I think sometimes um, that's something where there's coaching or therapy and you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't afford it, but maybe you invest a little bit in therapy, because what happens is you may not see monetary right away, but when you work on that internal work, you start making decisions that are just going to be more, typically you're going to make healthier decisions that will eventually impact the way you show up at work. So now you may have more confidence to go in and ask for that raise, but it takes doing the internal work. So you don't want to just say, am I going to make money from this? No, it could be sometimes it's no, I'm going to have internal shifts that are going to support me and eventually having more income and building my wealth. And so bad debt is usually consumer oriented, and it typically is used to finance lifestyle expenses like vacations, luxury goods, or daily expenses that don't allow you to actually get a return on your investment or generate any income. And often it can be high interest and it's not tax deductible. Now, what I will say about that is a lot of times you can ask yourself, are you doing this for yourself, because it's a true desire that's going to help you in the long run, whether it's financial return or a return of your level of peace, mind, things like that. If the answer is no, a lot of times you can say, well, this is bad debt. So an example of is retail therapy. So it's a thing, especially for women. Certain times of the month, like I have to watch myself because I'm in every restaurant. I'm going shopping, buying things that I don't need, and don't get me started on Amazon Prime. You order all these things, and you're like, wait a minute, I don't really need any of this, nor do I really want and need these things. So pay attention to the energy behind in which you're purchasing things, and don't be ashamed to return things. Okay. So pay attention to, don't do things that are final return if you can help it. But pay attention to that, and if you find that as you're looking at your debt and you're like, wow, I'm spending a lot of money vacationing with friends because they want me to go, but I don't have to go. I really can't afford it. These are not trips of a lifetime. These are things that I could save for and plan for the future. Being okay saying no. Hey, you know what? I would love to, but not this time. Oh, that sounds great. what does it look like for planning that for next year? And then you can save into it, but really tap in and identify, is this truly a desire for yourself that is going to, in the long run, will you look back I was gonna say a year, but sometimes you look back 6 months from now and say, oh my gosh, I wish that I had done this. I cannot believe I didn't do this. And if the answer is no, and you cannot afford it, this is really if you cannot afford it, or if making that purchase is gonna really prevent you from achieving your long-term goals, put a pin in it. Wait, give yourself 24 hours, 48 hours to think about it and really ask yourself, do I need this? If you're someone who finds that they do the retail therapy and they shop a lot, tell sometimes put it in your cart, leave it in the cart, walk away, and in a day or two, if you're still like, oh yes, I really, really want this, this is definitely gonna support me in my long-term goal, then okay, go for it. But sometimes it's just having that little time behind it that you can get out of what emotional spending you may be in. So examples of bad debt are like credit card debt for like non-essential purchases, and then especially if you're not paying them off at the end of the month, because then that's when the high interest rates kick in. We don't love that. Payday loans. Payday loans, I believe, are basically the devil. Because they're short-term loans. Typically, they have ridiculously high interest rates, and they usually trap you in the cycle of debt. And so if you're catching the replay or you're here and that's something that you're going through, it's not anything to be ashamed about, but it is something to be aware of. And it's just wait a little bit and save to purchase that. Sometimes it's raising your hand and seeing who in your immediate circle can perhaps offer you a resource to support you. And then sometimes it's sitting and identifying what is causing this cycle. Is it I'm not making enough money, and so I'm gonna always be short because I'm not making enough money? And then it's okay. Then the question becomes, how do I make more money legally? I'm encouraging, how do we make more money legally? So maybe it's, hey, do you know someone who you can walk a dog? Are you great at cleaning? Reaching out to people and generating additional income, and so that way you are leveraging yourself to make that money as opposed to using these payday loans, because like I said, the fees are ridiculous, and a lot of times it just causes you to keep coming back to them. So those are some examples of bad debt. If you have any questions or want clarification, let me know, and I'm happy to take a deeper dive. But I love having my clients be able to differentiate that, like I said, just to get rid of some of that shame and anxiety around money. And so that way you can be in the energetic of, okay, here are the facts of where we're at. How do I then repay this, but still, have a positive energy about it? Because when you are feeling like, the shame and woe is me, I can't, sometimes you can't think clear. And that's scientific. You're in flight mode or freeze. And so you're frozen or you're avoiding and running away. And so once we've been able to really identify good debt versus bad debt, even if it's quote unquote bad because you bought, you did an unessential vacation. But if that vacation was, wow, this is a once in a lifetime trip. I got to see my dad before he passed away, or this is the last time I was able to spend with my kid before they went off to college and then they did such and such. If you can find a greater meaning behind it, you won't have a lot of that negative energy around it. And so with that being said, now we're in a place where you have debt, and a lot of times it's, I want to pay this debt back. I don't want it hanging over me. I want to get it paid back. And so I do want to take a deeper dive into how to actually repay debt if you have it. And so I talk about 4 methods. It's a snowball method, avalanche method. I like a combination, and debt consolidation. All repayment strategies were not created equally. They really are based on you as a person. And so again, when I work with my clients at an individual level, because it matters what you're going to do and how you actually react to repaying debt. And so snowball method, if you're someone who you need to stay motivated by quick wins, the snowball method is great because you get to see your accounts being paid off and you can cross things off. I love checking things off the list. The avalanche method is great if you're someone who like, I want to pay the least amount of interest, and that gets me excited to see how much money I've saved, Avalanche method is great for you. And on the next slide, I'll go into a deeper explanation of what you do for each. And then if you're someone who, hey, I need to start with some quick wins to keep me motivated, and then I want to save money as well, using the snowball method and avalanche method, it works well. And then debt consolidation is great if you want to have lower interest paid over time, but you also don't want to have to manage multiple accounts all over the place. Doing a debt consolidation is super great. So it's really about what works best for you. And so in the workbook, I have a credit and debt tracker, and I like using it this way because you don't have the debt name, but you can write out what you owe. You write everything that you owe, and then as well as your minimum payment and your interest rates. And then I also added a column where you can kind of see if it was good debt or bad debt, just for you, so you can, you know, again, it's a calming your nervous system. But I like having these categories in there so you can quickly identify like smallest to biggest, smallest to largest, your balances. You can also see what your minimum payments are quickly in one document, and then you can also check and see what your interest rates are. And a lot of times we just don't even know what our interest rates are. So this also helps you really become aware of, okay, what are you even paying in interest? So I love that. And then utilization, that's just also to help you identify, you know, because sometimes if you're wanting to leverage more debt, or you're also working with minimizing, with raising your credit score, you can then also do the utilization to see, okay, are any of these credit cards over 30% utilization? Because that's then affecting your credit score. But I won't take too much deep dive into that. But the snowball method, like I mentioned, that basically you're gonna pay off your smallest debt first. No, so you don't care about interest rate. Just you look after you list out all of your debts. You say, okay, which one is the smallest balance? Anytime you have extra money, well, actually, there's a whole look. We can just go down the checklist. You list out your debt, and then you make the minimum payments on all debt. But anytime you have extra money, then you throw that at the smallest balance. And then once that smallest debt is paid off, you then that minimum payment that you were making for that account, you then take that minimum payment and then you apply that to the next smallest debt, until it's paid off, and you repeat until it's paid off. And so what's cool about that is you'll be able to see your debt getting checked off quicker. And so that's the snowball method. The avalanche method, again, we're paying off your highest interest rates first. So in that case, you would list your debts out, and you base that on your highest interest rates to your lowest interest rate. Again, you're going to make your minimum payments on every debt, but the extra income in the avalanche method, you're going to take any extra income and throw it at your highest interest debt. And so with that, and then you start the process over again. Once you pay off the highest interest debt, then you can take that and then start applying it to the next highest debt. And then with a combination, same thing, we list out all the debt, and then you organize them by interest rate, highest to lowest, and then also you pay the same minimum balance on all the cards. But in this case, with the combination, any extra money, you go to your smallest debt. So now you got your win, you're like, ching, I paid off an entire credit card or whatever that is. And then you can decide to move on to the highest interest rate at that point. Debt consolidation is a little bit more involved because there's so many different ways in which you can actually do a debt consolidation. And so, but basically what happens with that is you identify all of your debt that you have, and then you can then research what are the best options to consolidate your debt. And so there are personal loans you may see you can get a personal loan. You may be able to have one credit card where you can transfer everything and do maybe like a 0% APR or something like that. Some people use home equity loans to actually consolidate their debt, because typically home equity lines have a lower debt than the credit cards. And then there are also, I guess, credit companies that offer debt consolidation as well. And so the main thing to really be aware with that is making sure that you understand the rules with whoever you're working with. So what you don't want to do is, this recently happened with a client, is they were doing debt consolidation, and it takes a bit. They were working through a company, and then there were no payments being made on the debts. And that basically tanked their credit score, and that impacted them in that way. So understand what the rules are for wherever you're going for that. And then also what you want to make sure that you do is don't get into a situation where you've consolidated everything, but the underlying issues and why you keep accumulating new debt that's not helpful in supporting you in your long-term goals, that you haven't actually addressed those issues. And that sometimes does happen where you've consolidated it all, and the next thing you know, you've got like a credit card that has zero balance, and you're like, oh, you can use it now. That's not really what we want to be utilizing the debt consolidation for. It's really a strategy where you can get all, if you have multiple debts all over and you're really looking to get it in one space, and you've really got healthy money and debt management habits in place to where you're not going to get yourself in the same situation. And this should also be in your workbook. If not, you'll get the slides, and so you'll be able to actually see the additional steps. And so when you are thinking about, well, which one do I pick? You just gave me a lot of information. Think about, what is your personality? Are you someone who gets discouraged really easy? If you're not seeing movement, then I would say maybe do the snowball method, because you'll be able to be able to quickly see what your see the results. But you also want to know, like, what are the amount of your debts, because if you have all your debts are about the same, like if you once you map out all your debts and they have similar balances, you're really not, they have similar balances. So you may want to then look at your considering the avalanche method, because at this point you want to make sure if they're all the same balances, now the savings is going to come into place with your interest rate. Because even if you're paying the minimum balances and they're the same balance, there's no one that you're going to be able to check off faster than the other. But you can see a significant difference in the amount of interest you pay. So like I said, if there are similar balances, consider looking at the avalanche, because now you're going to look at your interest rate, so you can at least save on interest rates. And then, look at what type of debts that you also have. So consider if these are like mortgages or student loans or credit cards, because oftentimes with credit cards, the interest rates are going to be higher than student loans and things like that. And then also just how they impact your credit scores can be a bit different. Usually with credit cards, especially if your utilization is high, it's impacting you in a more negative way than having a student loan on your credit report is. And so being mindful of that. So when you're considering what's the best strategy for you, take into consideration those types of things to identify which one is going to work best for you. And the most beautiful thing about this is you can start, and if you find that something isn't working, try another method to see if that gives you a little bit more excitement. But the main thing is just to get started and move on from that. And so now we've covered quite a bit. Last time I'm just gonna go over it'll be a little bit of review from our previous sessions, but also some ways just an overall to manage your debt. And so the first one is really having a spending plan, aka a budget. It's truly sitting and identifying what money is coming in, what expenses are going out, so you can get a better understanding of where's my money going? Can I afford certain things? And so a lot of times that will support you in identifying, do you need to accumulate debt, or can you just pay for it out of pocket, or do you need it? Because sometimes the answer is you don't need it. Looking and having an emergency fund, because when you have an emergency fund, instead of looking to credit, unless you're leveraging credit for the point, or having an extended period of payment, have an emergency fund. So instead of looking to use a credit card, you can actually pull from your savings account. Oh, there's a question here. Oh, lifeinmyfinances.com. Oh, you have to tell us more about that. Shantae, well, I just shorten your name, but La Shantae, and let me know. This has a snowball debt tracker. Perfect. See, so I love a snowball. That's usually my go-to, and then well, actually, I do a combination. Talk to lenders. Sometimes you can actually go and speak to your lenders, and they've been known to sometimes lower your interest rates if you talk to them. And so that's helpful, but actually have a conversation and speak to them. Determine what repayment strategy you want and get into action. Just start. And then lastly, you want to talk to a financial counselor. So that may be a financial advisor, that may be a financial coach. There are financial therapists, because especially if you find that you are someone that is using debt to fill a hole of some sort, or sometimes, I've worked with clients who they're the breadwinners of their family, and sometimes it's hard for them to say no, and they've gone into debt to support other people, and now these other people, they're living their best life. They don't pay their light bill, they don't pay their rent, because they come to this family member to get help. Even though this family member doesn't have it, they're going into debt. Sometimes it's about, again, talking to someone to get to some of those habits and beliefs, because once you start working and saying, you know what, I don't owe these people anything. I have to work just like and to get my things. So do they. But sometimes you actually have to work through those feelings, so that way you feel confident to say no and not feel bad. And so you can actually start breaking some habits. And so working with a financial counselor is perfect. Oh, okay, no worries. So yeah, anything comes up, put it in the chat, and we'll definitely talk about it. But in summary today, managing debt can be stressful, so it's really important that we understand what are some of your beliefs and feelings around debt. We address that. Get an understanding of what's good debt versus bad debt. We also got to have a better understanding of debt repayment options, and then just some tips to actually how to manage your debt on a regular basis. But truly getting an understanding of your money and having that spending plan is super helpful, because it'll address a lot of your questions. And then here's my contact information. And our next session is October 25th. And it's gonna be our last one of this series. And it's actually we're gonna dive into just some other miscellaneous, like investing options, things like that, making sure you're protecting yourself. So it'll be kind of like a hodgepodge type of session, but it's really having that full picture with your finances. And so other than that, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer any outstanding questions that you may have. So I don't have any workshops on that. I have I retired. I used to have an ebook that I sold about just setting up the foundations of a business. But there is at State College of Florida, I believe it's called 26 West. They actually, I believe they are hosting free workshops about starting businesses. And they definitely have some coming up. Also, SCORE, let me put that in there. So 26 West in Bradenton and SCORE. They have workshops as well that I'm sure I saw some that were coming up about starting businesses. And with SCORE, you can actually apply to get a mentor. And so whether you're an established business owner or a new business owner, they actually, can apply to get a free mentor that actually works you, goes through that process. And I actually worked with a SCORE mentor before, and it was very helpful because they do give you practical tips as well as like marketing things that when you're a business owner, you just think, you're providing the service or the product, but yes, perfect. Thank you. There we go. That, your genius zone is being the business owner, but there are like all these other things that you don't think about. And so I definitely recommend, Career Source, Suncoast, 26 West, and then SCORE. They will definitely have some opportunities as well.
And then Alex, I added one more in there, the Tampa Bay Women's Business Center. So
Oh, perfect.
they have different workshops, and so does obviously Career Source.
Well, this was a pleasure. Hopefully, you got some good takeaways. And if anything else comes up, y'all have my contact information, and then we will be here on the 25th. That'll be good stuff.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you for everyone for joining today.
You are so welcome. Well, until next month, have an amazing. Oh wait, hold on here.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Here you are. I'll put it right there, and then yes. So that's my contact, and so you can definitely. Yes, thank you. You have a great day as well. And if I was smart, I would put that in the workbook. But in the workbook, I actually did add. I have a money shame ebook, and it's totally free. That talks about money shame and how to actually create a healthier money mindset. And so I did put that in the workbook this time. I remembered to do that because I had some clients say, you should share this more. So there it is.
Tracy, did you get the contact? Okay, perfect. Just wanted to make sure.
I did. I just took a picture of it. Alex, I'm going to be contacting you about two other things. A, I have someone that needs you and your services. And B, I work for Girls Inc. and we would love to hire you to have you come in and just talk to the girls as young ladies about to embark on their financial journey. And we want to make sure that they do the right thing and not the wrong thing as far as using two cards in the wrong places at the wrong times. But I would love to be able to call you offline and ask if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you have my info, and just you don't have my email address, but
that's okay. I'll get you. I got you. Don't worry.
Because I was like, I'll put that in the chat too. But yeah, I would love that. I love talking to the youth because you have to catch them early.
Yeah, and let me tell you, these girls are great. They are all in transitional periods where some of them are first gen and they're taking care of their parents and bills and things that 18, 19, and 20-year-olds shouldn't have to do, but they do. And so it's just a matter of, and you know what, in combination with college and all that stuff, you know how expensive all that stuff is. And sometimes they bite off more than they can chew, and they can't finish things because, they're over committing to too many things besides, paying the bills at home and everything. So, but anyway, they're a great organization and they're right across the street from Women's Resource Center. So I'm always mentioning WRC to them too, just because they're young, and young ladies doesn't mean they can't pop over there and see what other services are available to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks, Brent. All right. Well, listen, both of y'all have a great day, and LaShante too. Bye, ladies and gents.
Bye. Take care, everyone.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. And then if you have, like I said, if you have any questions, you know how to find me. I am around.
Bye, Alex.
Thanks. Talk to you later. Bye.